We are your home for New York Yankee baseball, 104.5 at Team ESPN Radio. But we know that there's a lot of Boston Red Sox fans in the capital region as well, and they compete in that same division, American League East, and covering for the Boston Globe, covering the Red Sox is our good friend Pete Abraham. Pete, Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado, happy Good Friday here in Albany. Good to have you on the program.
Hey, Roger, thanks for having me on again.
Thank you, Pete. Always a pleasure. Give me your early take on this Red Sox team. I know yesterday they got the 3-run eighth and were able to take care of business against the Pirates in a little makeup game, 4-3. Rodriguez got the start. We'll see Porcello tonight. But you've had the Red Sox have had the injury to Jackie Bradley Jr., and you've had some sickness and illness. What's your early thoughts here, small sample size, on Boston to begin the year?
Yeah, it's been a very strange opening to the season for them. They've only had their regular lineup in place on opening day, not since. And guys like Mookie Betts and Andrew Benintendi haven't really hit much yet. Xander Bogaerts hasn't been with the team much because of a death in his family. He just came back 2 games ago. So it's been a very uneven, kind of fractured beginning of the season. And I do think, and I've thought all along, that this is going to be a very good offense. We haven't really seen that yet. And the problem that the Red Sox had was at the bottom of their rotation, and that's where it really has popped up. They haven't gotten much out of Steven Wright or Eduardo Rodriguez, and they need those guys, I think, in particular, to get going in terms of just the pitching, and that, because the offense, I think, will take care of itself.
Yeah, I mean, this team, when healthy, Pete, should be able to hit and should be able to play really good defense, right?
Yeah, to me, this is, even with David Ortiz off in retirement, this is still a team that can score 800 runs. They haven't hit a home. They've hit 1 home run in the last 6 games, which is not what you'd expect. And defensively, they're very strong. Jackie Bradley Jr. is going to be back pretty soon. And it's up the middle with Xander Bogaerts and Dustin Pedroia. Their 2 catchers are very good. And then having Bradley in center field, it's a very good defensive team. And it's been such a weird thing with the flu and everything else. And they just haven't had their regular 9 guys all together.
What's your thoughts on Chris Sale here? Early on in the season, obviously, big off-season acquisition, should be the ace of this staff, and so far so good with Chris Sale, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine he could be much better. He's gone 2 games, 14 2/3 innings, only 2 runs, struck out 17, walked only 2. He's been great. Kind of just a victim of circumstances that he hasn't won both of those games. They've both been close, low-scoring games, and he's been everything that they could have wanted him to be. And David Price now has started to work his way back from the injury he had in spring training. So they have, I think, the makings of a good top of the pitching staff. And if they were to get in the playoffs, which you think they would, they'd be a dangerous team because of those guys.
Hey, Pete, what is the latest on David Price? I know I saw on BostonGlobe.com that he had thrown 2 bullpen sessions this week and was feeling pretty good. Can you give us a little more context to where Price is currently?
Yeah, it's basically right now the first week of spring training for him, if you look at it that way. He didn't pitch at all in spring training. He had that 1 game against minor league hitters, and then he came in the next day and his elbow was bothering him, so he never got into any sort of games in spring training. He's at a point right now where if this were the first week of spring training, he'd be preparing for his first outing. So on Saturday, they want him to throw what amounts to 2 innings in the bullpen. He'll throw 45 pitches, and then sometime early next week, I would think Tuesday or Wednesday, he'll face hitters, not in a game, but sort of the Red Sox will have some of their backup guys face him on the field at some point. And then from there, he would probably be cleared to go pitch in a minor league game. And he'll have to probably go at least, I would think, 3 or 4 games, like a normal spring training sort of thing, to get up to 6 innings and 95 pitches, somewhere in that neighborhood, because they can't really bring him back if he can only go 4 or 5 innings, because that's going to wreck the bullpen every 4 or 5 days. So they need him to kind of come back and be ready to go 6, and that's going to take a while. That'll probably take at least 3 weeks in the minors before he's ready to come back.
It's Tampa tonight against the Red Sox, and we're talking with Pete Abraham. Boston Globe does a great job covering the Red Sox. He joins us here on this Good Friday on Big Board Sports on 104.5 at Team ESPN Radio. Pete, how about Porcello, reigning Cy Young Award winner, and they're expecting another big year from him. I don't know if he can duplicate what he did a year ago, but he gets the call on the bump tonight. It's Porcello against Archer this evening at Fenway.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard for Porcello to duplicate what happened last year because so many things went right for him. Even in the games where he'd give up 5 or 6 runs, the Red Sox would score 8 or 9 runs and he'd get the victory. And he didn't have that streak of bad luck that a lot of pitchers will have at some point during the year where they pitch well but they don't get decisions and things like that. everything that really could go well for him did go well. And I do think if he might not be a Cy Young guy, but he's certainly a guy who's a good, solid number 2 or 3 starter for a contending team, which is pretty much what he is with this Red Sox team. He's a guy who's very reliable. He's going to give you 6 innings. He's not going to walk too many batters. He doesn't give up too many home runs with that sinker. And I think going back to his first year in Boston, once he kind of got over that initial shock of being in Boston and the trade and everything else, he's been very good. When you look back at his last year and a half, he's been one of the best pitchers in the American League, pitching in the American League East, and I think that's about, certainly better than what the Red Sox could have expected when they obtained him.
Boston 5-4, Baltimore 6-2 atop the division. The Yankees are 5-4. They just completed the 3-game sweep. But Tampa, Rays are 500 team, and I guess you look at that division, you'd be a little bit surprised to see Toronto at 1-8, Pete.
And struggling mightily offensively, not getting much out of Jose Bautista, and really Troy Tulowitzki not doing much. That Josh Donaldson's hurt. It's been a very odd year for the Blue Jays so far. And they start to get to that point now when you look at historically and you say, well, teams that have gotten off to this kind of start have never made the playoffs, things like that, and that causes some unrest in the clubhouse. And yeah, it's been at this point really a disastrous season for Toronto.
Pete, I know I'm asking you to go down memory lane here, but I've never had the opportunity to ask you this question, so I'm just kind of interested if there's a story that may go along with it. I know you're a Massachusetts guy. I would assume grew up a Red Sox fan. What was it like way back when you took a job covering the Yankees? Was there an internal struggle at all?
Oh, no, because working in New York, I worked for the newspaper in White Plains, the Journal News.
Yeah.
I quickly figured out that the best way to advance in New York journalism and sports journalism was to cover baseball. And they offered me the Mets beat, and I took that, and I covered the Mets for a few years, and then they offered what at our paper was a promotion to the Yankees, and I certainly couldn't say no to that. And that was the Yankees sort of at the height of being the Yankees.
Right.
Joe Torre and Derek Jeter and Posada and Pettit, the whole crew. And it was like covering the Rolling Stones. I mean, everywhere you went, they were the biggest deal, and sold out games everywhere on the road and everything like that. And it was a great learning experience to be around Joe Torre, the first part of it, and certainly to get to cover players like Jeter and Mariano Rivera. We didn't really have those kind of guys covering the Mets at that time. So it was for somebody trying to learn how to cover baseball, it was probably the best place to be. And I would have done it as long as I could have, except that when the Boston Globe called me, that was where I grew up, and my family all lived, and it had been a dream of mine back when I was a kid to work for the Globe. So that was hard to turn down. But, yeah, I had unbelievably good times covering the Yankees. It was a really great educational experience.
Very cool.
Well, hey, listen, Pete, happy Easter weekend to you, man, and your family, and we appreciate a few minutes. We're closely following the Red Sox, and I'm sure we'll be back in touch down the road.
Yeah, same to you guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Pete. That's Pete Abraham of the Boston Globe.